right. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for being here this evening to explore this theme of healing that I love to talk about and support people in their awakening to experience, which is healing with nature. I was really reflecting on, this opportunity to be here and to share this with you. And I think I want to start by just honoring that I really feel a deep sense of gratitude to the invitation to even be here with all of you and or to share this work. My sense of it is, yes, it's through my practice, it's through my understanding of teachings and connection to nature, but I really believe that it's a collective wisdom that we're leaning into or learning how to reawaken. I don't think it's something that we don't already have. So it's in there, and I see my role in service of helping to reemerge it or to allow it to come more to the foreground, and so we can live in it in a more whole and alive way. And it comes from my own love of the natural world and this earth, to want to share, and how many very deep, profound healing experiences I've had with her. And I'm certain that most of us sitting here in this webinar together, or people who will watch it, equally have had some profound, deep, intimate connection of healing or holding with this earth. That to me is mysterious and amazing, right? And that we're just all pointing to, again, reawakening to that and allowing ourselves to have a deeper sense of connection to our lives and to the earth. So I wanted to also start by sharing, so it's not only just my deep gratitude and love of connection to the earth, but the reason that I'm really pointed in the direction I am, right? The title of this talk, Healing with Nature, Mindfulness and Somatic Practices to Heal from Trauma, is that I deeply care about healing trauma, deeply. Having practiced as a psychologist for a long time, a few decades. And so my experience tells me, with the many, many, many people I have supported in their healing process, that trauma is often at the root of most psychological, challenging, distressing experiences that people suffer with ongoingly. So it became clear to me quite early in my practice of supporting people in their healing, it was really important to turn to the trauma, right? To not just treat anxiety or to treat depression or to treat whatever other symptoms might be going on, but it's probably correlated to some experience of unhealed trauma. And what I was learning in my practice is that unhealed trauma would beget more trauma, meaning people who have a sense in their system of dysregulation, a sense of reactivity that they can't really feel like they have agency or control over, it kind of ripples out to create more of that in their relationships or in the experiences of their life. And so became really interesting that as I started to find ways to really skillfully move towards the trauma healing world, that what the healing of trauma began to do was create opportunities for more healing. So the healing actually beget more healing. So people were inspired to think about more healing or had more agency in their nervous system, and they were more able to deal with life with a little more agency and control, that they wanted to do more, right? So the whole reason I wrote a book on all of this was to feel into that capacity that we all have, the capacity we all have to actually be able to heal and transform our trauma so we can step into more aliveness. And where I see the intersection of meditation, mindfulness practices with nature, somatic healing, I'll talk in a minute about what that is, with nature, and the container of nature herself holding our way of exploring those healing experiences for ourselves, that begins to emerge health. And once we taste health, we don't really go back. The other thing I find too with these practices is that people often find that it just gets easier and easier. Like it's not like it gets harder and harder. Once the healing has kind of started to take place, it's like a healthy snowball effect. It just doesn't take as much effort. So, really cool to be a part of that conversation and that process. And that's what I love to share about and I'm up to. So I thought it'd be helpful to just define what I mean by trauma and welcome. I see others gathering and joining us, and so great to see so many people here. Trauma. So I'm a big proponent of kind of demystifying, destigmatizing what we think trauma is. It's gotten kind of a bad rap, I think, as a mainstream thought about what it is. And we tend to think about, well, trauma must just be the classically psychologically defined ways of suffering, i.e., having been in a war or combat situation, having experienced some significant assault or some significant natural disaster, right? So there's things that are actually classically defined by the psychology world that say those are the things that are trauma. Not a proponent of that being the definition, actually. Because what I find, and this is from the orientation of what somatic healing or somatic experiencing, which is part of what we'll explore, really views trauma in more of this lens of if we went through an experience in our life that we found distressing, disturbing, disorganizing, dysregulating, all the D words, some kind of upheaval. And as we went through it, we didn't really feel like in that moment we had all the resources we needed to get us through that experience, to ultimately begin to bring us back down to a homeostasis, regulated state of being. When you look at it from this point of view, if that's the definition, it gets pretty broad. How many times can you think of a situation in your life where it was hard, it was really unsettling, distressing, you didn't really have all the resources, you did the best you could to get through, you got on the other side and you were like, yeah, it's mostly better, but it wasn't completely better. And you just moved on with your life, right? That's actually the definition of trauma. And what happens, what we know about trauma is that because we go through that experience and we don't get to actually have all the resources to take care of ourselves fully, to get back down to that regulated homeostatic state of our nervous system, it stays stuck in your nervous system. What that means is it'll stay stuck in your physiology, your physical sense of body. And it will also stay stuck in the way that your mind and your heart keeps trying to play it out. And that's difficult, right? It creates a lot of suffering. And it's why we go, why am I so annoyed by this when I shouldn't be so annoyed by this? But I am. Seems like it should be a fairly benign thing, but it's not. Probably related to something in our experience of life that just got stuck. My view of this is really good news because there's a way to heal this. There's a way to rewire, reorganize, re-regulate your nervous system back to its origin, back to its health, back to its right to have its full capacity for aliveness. It is our birthright, just like it is for everything else in nature, to be fully alive, expressed, engaged in our life. If you've ever watched animals, which they're great at this, we are not that great, by the way, we're an animal. So, but these guys have gotten in the way of how much we're able, our brains, how much we're able to participate with our organism this way. But if you look at nature, you ever watch just an animal or a being in nature? A deer is a good example. A dog is another good example. Even birds, right? if they get startled by an experience of life, a distressing life event for them, something is approaching its safety and survival and need for thriving in life, they will do their thing. They will, get still, look around, suss out. Maybe in some situations they'll charge to protect themselves. In some situations they'll run. But they do what's necessary. And then when they come on, they have the resources. They use their resources. They come on the other side. Maybe shake it off a little. This is why dogs are so good at that. And you watch them, they just go back to like, cool, life's good again. My dog just did this today with the wind about 10 times. We got a lot of wind here today. And she kept barking at the wind. I was like, there's nothing there. And then she'd bark, shake, and then lay down, right? So they're very good at it. We are not. What ends up happening is we just kind of push through and go through. So the way we can begin to experience that healing, and this is where healing with nature is really such a beautiful doorway into this process, is we can learn how to be present. We can learn how to begin to connect with our own inner experiences of what might be stuck. Find skillful ways to heal that, which there are various somatic practices, which I won't go too deeply in tonight. But know that if you chose the course or you came on the retreat, there's definitely more I'll teach on those practices for that. But we find skillful ways to work with and release the trauma from the mind, body, heart, such that we come through the other side, having released that trauma from our system. Then we step into greater wholeness and aliveness. So mindfulness is our starting point for being able to come into relationship with our being in this way. So we want to learn how to wake up, be present in a kind and compassionate and non-judgmental way. But the challenge with trauma is we have learned a lot of good escape strategies or avoidance strategies or checkout strategies to not turn to that. So we learn how through those practices to begin to turn, begin to hold our attention kindly and gently and compassionately. And we do this within the container of nature. So this was the other interesting thing that I discovered with my clients. Trauma work is hard, period. Into that sentence. When I say, let's go hang out with a dysregulated, disruptive state, that's not what people usually sign up for. It's like, should we go hang out with some bees and see if they'll sting us? Like, that doesn't sound good. So what I was finding is it was really difficult sometimes for people to author that in and to feel willing and able to do that. But when we stepped outside and we could feel the container and the support and the ease that just happens when we're in the outer world and with her, it wasn't as hard. There wasn't quite so much resistance. So this is where these practices become so powerful when we take them in and with the natural world. Title of the book is With Nature for a Reason, with her. So that we find that allied relationship that allows us to have the support and then the courage to turn towards what needs our healing, towards what is here to have its supportive experience to transform. So if you think about a time for yourself, recently, probably, I would say most of us spend time in nature. I would imagine you're not on this call that you don't do that, but you've stepped outside and you've felt the intimate connection to her. I'm pretty certain your nervous system can recall that right now. Just like reflect for a second, like take in some moment you recently had with nature. Mine would be hearing my birds this morning. They're so loud. They're waking up with the spring that's happening here, right? And just their soundscape, right? It washes over my body and feels soft, feels soothing, right? Doesn't take much. Look at something green. Your body, your nervous system usually goes, ah. By the way, birdsong and water, scientifically shown to regulate our nervous system, decreases cortisol levels. This seems obvious. I mean, it's cool that all the research in nature is coming out, but it's good to know. You just need to spend a few minutes out there, and there's something that happens. We don't even have to do anything. So all the practices that I teach are I call them the twofers. It's like, if you're already getting it, you just need to spend some time outside. But the twofer is maybe we find some other practices that help deepen that connection and healing capacity that's already there. It's in our design, right? We also know when we see long ranges, this is interesting new data. So when you look at a long view, that actually is very soothing to your nervous system. So if you notice when you go up to a big vista, you can look out, and that's why people love to get to the top of a hike and be like, oh, vista, right? Yes, it's beautiful, but what we've learned is we are programmed for our survival to see long distances. It ensures our safety, like it did on the savannah. If our nervous system can see a wide, long view, it's like, yep, that's good. My safety is almost ensured because I can see it all coming or take care of myself. So not only has it got this beauty and awe and majesty that often we experience with long views or big vistas, but there's a real organismic sense of health that actually is happening in those moments. So it's what we're doing is learning how to be more present in that way when we're with nature, so we can really awaken these ways we can connect to ourselves and our health within us, because it's actually in there, but a lot of times it's covered up because of these trauma stuck patterns. And then the somatic practices really teach us, okay, so once we're a little bit more present, feel that container of connection and support with the natural world, maybe we have a little bit more in the nervous system to then begin to work with the difficult places. So the practice I'm going to lead us in tonight is actually kind of combining a couple practices tonight, but what would be an orienting practice and a grounding practice. And what those practices in the somatic world do, orienting being really connected in a sensory, alive, present with way to our experience of where we are in the natural world, grounding our rooted connection to here-ness within our body. But those two things continue to amplify that sense of ease and settling into the nervous system, that capacity that we need to be able to first feel our ability to be here, to be settled, to be rooted, to be okay in this moment. Not a good idea to work with trauma until that has established itself, and that we have real agency and choice over knowing we can author that into our immediate experience. So it's the practice I'm going to lead us in a little bit with. So just to know that, and in fact, I was just sharing with someone this week that the experience of orienting and grounding, we can, I'm sure many of you have heard maybe like earthing or grounding, like put your feet on the ground. That's a nice experience. It is, it's wonderful. And the real benefit is learning how to practice that and sustain that. Because what happens when we sustain and really learn to lean into in a continuous kind of way, that's aiding the health of our nervous system, buoying our nervous system, recharging, resourcing our nervous system, and then we can do that deeper work. It's undervalued. And that's what I was sharing with this person earlier this week of like, it's undervalued. We think like, oh yeah, do a little bit of that and then get to the, deep healing stuff. It's kind of inverted. In fact, probably better to be more in the service of more of these establishing the health in the nervous system practices first and foremost. And then when we're ready, we can do that work for healing the trauma. So I'll lead us in that in a little bit. And then the last thing I just want to point to as far as the how all of this comes together. As we begin to integrate these practices of mindfulness and somatic healing with nature, begin to feel into what I call them like the healing currents. Like there's a healing thread or a healing current that starts to emerge where we're like, oh, I just feel a little bit more calm. That's nice when I'm in that situation. Or I feel a little bit more myself. I often hear people use the word, I just felt more myself. Yes, that is the reemergence of your original state that is your birthright to have access to. And so what we then do in the courses and in the retreats is spend some time really nurturing that, really nurturing all of those beautiful, wholesome qualities that start to come through and you begin to know as your truth, your experience of health. And then in all of the things that I offer in courses and trainings and retreats, where we, and the book talks about this in the last section, if we have this healing relationship that we're cultivating through all these means with the natural world, and she's allying with us and she's giving us back our original state and our rightful way of expressing and being in the world that feels healthy, we're naturally drawn to be in reciprocity with her for that. So there's some calling that we can listen into. You know, the Eco Dharma Center, Rocky Mountain Eco Dharma Center, is a beautiful, the whole inception experience, the fact that it exists is because of people's love to care for healing the earth, to care, to wake up to the ways that we are in relationship with the earth and doing our part. So I find that, you know, when people have a very deep and profound healing experience with nature, the next step of, well, of course I do something to make my life different because I care now. There's an intimate connection of reciprocity that I act from to help the earth. And that's a beautiful gift. Right? So just to know, that's kind of my sense of holding what this means to heal with nature and these ways that we can deepen our understanding of being part of the earth, because we are, every single one of us. In fact, I wrote tonight, I was like, healing with nature, and I was just, I probably wrote that 1,000 times, and I thought, all right, healing the nature of all these beings and healing the nature of all its nature. We're all nature. There's no separation here. So when we're in the conversation, when we're in the practice, when we're in the waking up, you are healing all of nature because you are part of it. Right? So your work is an act of love, of reciprocity, of care, every moment you choose it. So, 21 beings here tonight choosing that, right? And all the many different ways people do. So I'm going to lead us in a practice here in a moment. And after practice, we'll have a chance to just have a little Q&A, have some questions. I'll give some encouragement for different ways we can take this out, the particular practice we'll explore tonight. And bring it into your lives in a more outside of meditation kind of way. So I always invite folks when we're practicing. So tonight I would have been outside, except we have 50-mile-an-hour winds happening, so you wouldn't have heard me. So I'm inside looking out my sweet window at all my tree being friends. But I want to invite you, while we turn to practice, cameras clearly not needed. So if you're more comfortable to turn them off, that's perfectly fine with me. But more importantly, that you orient your nervous system, your body, to the natural world, right? So for me, I've got this lovely window right behind me. So I'm going to be able to take that in and feel that connection. Maybe it's a plant being that's nearby, and that's plenty. Or maybe you're outside. Maybe you are on a phone and you want to turn off cameras, and just maybe the conditions are such that you can. But I invite you to really get close in whatever way that makes sense for you to the natural world while we're here in this practice. So I will use a bowl that will signal our entry and then our end of our practice period. And as we settle in, also just to name, many of you I'm sure have practiced or have regular practices, but I always like to remember that every practice is different, and that means every moment when we go to practice, our bodies are different. Because we're exploring being closer and more intimate with our physical being in this practice, really take care. Does your body want to lie down? Does it feel like it needs to get closer to something? Does it need to soften and relax? Maybe you've had a long day. Whatever it is, just really listening to honor what your body needs for this practice to settle. Moving into this period of practice, an opportunity to transition from the offering of my words, these considerations for healing with nature, and give ourselves this opportunity and this permission to just arrive here into this moment. Our minds, our hearts, even our bodies can have ideas about what should unfold, what will unfold. And I just want to invite us to let go. And allow ourselves this gift and this opportunity to awaken to orienting to what's here, sensing our aliveness, and trusting whatever unfolds will unfold. And so as we're settling and arriving here to this practice, I want to invite us to really begin by arriving into the place that we are a part of. Your being in this moment is intimately connected to this place you sit in or are lying in. So let yourself begin to attune. Sense through your sense doors what's here with you. Maybe you begin to feel into the soundscape of life. Feeling the songs, the rhythms, the pulses, the expressions. Maybe where you are in this moment, it's very quiet and still. Quietness is equally an expression of the soundscape of this earth. And I also invite you to feel into the visual sense of this environment, this place you're a part of, the lights, the colors, forms, shapes. All of that here as a support, as a resource of life that's part of your being here. And we can also feel into this sense of attunement to all of the ways our body is physically feeling the space around us, beneath us, behind us, above us. Such a beautiful thing about our organism that we can actually feel into the 360 directions of our body and feel, oh, ground beneath me, or ceiling or sky above me. So letting your whole body arrive here, feeling all of the different ways that life around you, the natural world here with you, is supporting you. And then can we feel the way all of that which is here with us is landing within our inner landscape, turning the attention now more intimately into our inner sense being. Maybe feeling the posture you've chosen of your body. And all of the ways that the body here in this moment might feel relaxed, soft, settled. Of course, remembering you can always choose to take care of your body at any moment, however you need. So, as we settle more into this inner landscape, I invite you that no matter what you find here, even if it's a busy mind, strained heart, tired body, whatever it might be, that you meet your inner experience of what's here with kindness. This is just your nature in this moment. Nothing we need to fuss with or try to fix or control, even. Simply, kindly honoring this inner being, this inner sense of your landscape and the way it is right now. And I want to invite us into this intention to really cultivate these supportive, wholesome states, exploring through our senses, orienting and grounding. So I invite us first to shift our attention now. Just become aware of hearing. And bringing your attention first to where your ears reside with your body. So quickly we want to go to the what is being heard. Bring the attention to just feeling the sense of your ears. Their location, maybe you can sense touch from hair or temperature or coolness. And to get curious about sound itself as it moves and expresses itself through your ears and then ultimately through the body. Loves to be interpreted by the mind. Just getting this felt sense. Can we get a sensory sense of what is sound ebbing and flowing and moving through the ears? So rather than a seeking out to the sound itself, just letting the sound arise and arrive at your ears. If you find yourself judging or chasing or grabbing onto a sound, that's okay. Just notice and see if you can put it down. Just let your being receive the experience of sound happening. And as you're present with sound, see if you can be curious about what happens moment to moment as you just hear to the body. The sound arises, the sound passes, and maybe we notice in that space here. Maybe a particular sound lands and feels soothing, calming. So I invite you to stay present with sound, and it's more helpful for you to stay with one particular experience of sound, choosing that, or maybe it's to be open to all sound. Landscape of sound as orienting and soothing and supportive to being here and our being in this moment. Now I'll invite us to shift from this sense doorway of sound, releasing our focus of presence from this. And I want to invite us to be curious about the landscape of sight. So maybe your eyes are closed. I invite you not to automatically open them yet, but maybe to just feel the eyes themselves. Take your attention to the way your eyes feel. the eyelids covering the eyes. Maybe you can sense the way the eyes rest ahead. It's beginning to get a bit of a sensory felt experience of your eyes themselves. Maybe even intentionally relaxing the eyes. And so when you're ready, I'm going to invite you to lift your gaze, opening the lid slowly, just being curious as you open to just let the light colors filter in. Eyes are really good at trying to decide what it is that's being seen. And just instead, let your eyes go where they want to go. And that may include rotating your head, looking in different directions. And again, just really letting the eyes lead the way, the felt sense of what you're taking in this place. Letting go of the labeling as best you can and just letting the eyes have this soft, relaxed seeing in the moment of what's here. Trying to hold on or fixate to any of it. Then I invite you, as you let the eyes go where they want to go, if they land on something that you just want to stay with for a moment, choose that. Maybe it's a color or a shape or shadow, texture. And just continuing to receive that moment to moment. And as you notice it, how does it land in the body? Maybe you notice a shape or a color and it just soothes or it settles, energizes, delights. Whatever it is, just notice how it's being received. And then when you're ready, we'll shift from that doorway of sight, landscape, seeing landscape. Maybe returning to allowing the eyes to close if they were closed. And now we'll shift to the sense doorway of touch. Just opening your field of awareness to feel into all the ways your body registers touch right here in this moment. Every square inch of this body is skin that registers contact with the outer world, and we can sense a moment of touch. And so bringing your attention into this full 360 sense of your body and all the ways you might notice contact, touch, light touch, heavy touch, soft, firm. Warm, cool. We can get very curious about letting go of needing to identify, name even, or judge what this contact is, and just allow ourselves to feel into the moment to moment sense of it. What does the pressure really feel like if I stay with it for a few moments? Maybe it's a sense of warmth and really noticing that sense of touch from the way the elements support, maybe of even clothing or the home you're in, registers this moment of warmth here. Soothing, supporting, settling. And so maybe you choose one area of the body to really get curious about. You can sense touch, connection, and how that feels as you sense into it in your body. As we're exploring this realm of touch, this way that we can know that we're connected, supported, not separate from. I want to invite you to really scan through your body. Maybe you start at the base of the feet and move to the crown of the head. Just discover for yourself, is there an expression, a sense, contact, support in your body right now that feels grounded? And grounded as a sensation of steadiness, solidness, rootedness. Maybe you feel this in a way you notice density or weightedness in your body in a particular place. Maybe it's the length of a particular muscle or sensation of warmth. This invitation to really feel in your body in this moment, what invites you into this grounded sense of your being. And steadying your presence with where you might feel this and the sensations that express themselves as grounded right now. Maybe it's just the way we sense gravity in a part of our body. And as you steady your presence in this intentional way, what happens in the body? Maybe you feel more ease or settledness. Maybe less pull by the mind or the heart. Just feeling into what it's like to Notice this groundedness and the way that it supports your being. And as we arrive into the last few minutes of our practice, just noticing what arises as I offer that, and see if you can come back into what feels grounded. Really allowing yourself to savor, sense, take in. So you might choose, as we're in these final minutes, to return to just staying with groundedness. Maybe it's to go back to the soundscape, the sight or seeing-scape, or the touch. Whatever one calls to you as feeling the most supportive, steadying, calming, settling, and trusting your wisdom to guide you. And so as we close, offering gratitude. Gratitude to the cultivation of your practice, to your awakening and connection to the natural world, and how this supports your well-being in all the ways it's revealed itself. May our practice be of service to the healing, our well-being, and our freedom from suffering. May we also dedicate this practice to the healing, to the well-being, and to the freedom from suffering for all beings. So we will come back together when you are ready. You can take your time shifting from your practice posture and wherever you were. If you feel comfortable to put your cameras back on, that's great. If not, that's fine too. Whatever you're feeling called for. Just going to offer that I've not been to Taos. There's like a mysterious lightscape business that happens every morning and every night, just by the way the land is here. And we are arriving into that sweet descending lightscape time. And it's just, you can see it's radiating on the wall. It's nice to be in its presence and feeling its support. So I'm realizing we are recording. So I don't know if Jesse's nearby, ask him to pause because I would love to create space for you to share your experiences, but also don't want you to feel like you're obligated in the recording side of things. Let me see if I actually have capacity to do that. Jesse, are you here?
Yes,
Can we
I'm
pause?
here.
Can we pause the recording?
Of course.
Oh, there we go. So I just want to say thank you for everybody's willingness to share and point us to how that practice or how this way of engaging with this practice really supports the settling and the soothing and the calming of the nervous system. And when we get a taste of that, it feels really nice, right? There's like we can breathe easier if maybe you notice that in the meditation, or you all of a sudden notice your muscles feel different. Or I like to call it sometimes when we start to taste this, there's a belly up breath that happens. It's not like this kind of breath, like it's like a wave from the bottom up, and your body's like, yes, I needed that, right? So there's this, when we lean into what is here, that we can orient to, ground into, let our nervous system stay present too long enough that feels supportive, and then check in with what happens with the body. The body takes care of itself. This is what's so phenomenally geekily amazing to me. Like, again, like you just pointed in the right direction and the body's like, yep, that's what I needed. That's your body's organic intelligence and wisdom. And so all we're doing is facilitating a waking up or a reconnecting to that. So you can use this practice to be able to really take care of nourishing your nervous system, which I would highly recommend as a daily practice. Daily. Because if we really want to transform the places that we feel stuck or unhealthy in, or maybe reactive trauma patterns in, we need this. This is what's required. So if you did nothing other than chose to practice orienting, chose to practice a little grounding for yourself, and to take that in, kind of be bathed by staying with and attuning to that in your nervous system, it's going to heal. It really will. Like we can absolutely do the other skillful means and different practices that support the deeper integrative work with trauma. But by and far, these practices for me are the ground, like they are the base of where we can keep coming back to. So in translation of what this looks like to daily life, what I would encourage, spending, I'm sure most of you do, but at least, 5-10 minutes outside with these kinds of practices. Going to your favorite place, connecting to a particular plant or an element or something that just kind of calls you in, right? Place in nature that calls you in. And then practice this orienting through the senses and practice grounding. So very simply, sound, sight, touch. If you have access to things you can smell and or taste, you can include those as well. But when we turn to the senses, it's to just be in the sense doorway itself rather than the content of what you're experiencing. And so if you notice, part of how I led the practice was go to the sense doorway first in your body. Hang out with the location of where it exists. And so that we can kind of start to dispel the reaching out, because that's the nature. It's like, oh, I see that. Oh, I hear that. Or, stay here for a moment in the inner sense of your own body's reception of it, and then see what it's like to go back and forth a little. So that's all my guidance was, okay, sound vibrating. Okay, what's being heard? Heard, what's being vibrated, right? So back and forth. So you can do that at each sense doorway. And then the grounding practice, in particular, it has its own place in practice that we spend actually a fair amount of time in the Healing with Nature courses and the retreats that I teach, particularly because it's a seminal practice to build on for some trauma healing practices that we would later explore. But I kind of wanted to drop a tiny bit in at the end of our meditation tonight to help you get curious about just that question that I dropped into the meditation, which was, where in your body are you grounded right now? Right. So usually once we're kind of a little more attuned and more present and feeling supported in our nervous system by the environment through our orienting, it's a little bit more available to go, oh, right, I'm in my body. That feels nice. Okay, so where am I grounded? Right. And grounded being a sensation, you get to determine what feels grounded in that moment. It might be that kind of more traditional sense we think of as rooted or steady or heavy or weighted, but it could also be warmth. It could be length. Sometimes, feeling the body more or less contracted, I would say, in some state feels very grounded for people. So it's leaning into that question, what in my body feels grounded right now? So if you're spending 5 or 10 minutes outside, drop that question in. Be really helpful. And then sustain, stay with, okay, so my feet feel really grounded right now. Well, what about my feet feel grounded? Check them out for a while. And then see how that permeates through your nervous system and permeates through your being. Right? So don't take long kind of practices. I mean, we practiced for 30 minutes tonight, but could be a very simple 5 to 10 minute take with you on a walk, take with you when you go hang out outside with your cup of tea. Practices that could really, again, nourish the nervous system and nourish our capacity to heal and feel the healing relationship with nature. Pretty simple, right? So just encourage you to take those in whatever way they feel helpful. So in the last few minutes of our time, I just wanted to, encourage you to, in whatever way you feel called, deepen your relationship with nature. When I said earlier, I really do believe the more connected and alive and awake we are with the natural world, that is going to be part of the recipe for healing our eco crisis. And your act tonight is a gift of that offering going out into the earth. And I don't take that lightly. And I want to honor each one of you for choosing that for yourself, but also for the earth. And I really invite you to take that in. It's necessary right now. And so honoring that whatever way you can deepen your relationship to your well-being with the earth is an act of caring for her. And remind yourself of that, right? Sometimes I move to tears out here when I, remind, how much I love to feel the way I'm taken care of by the earth and remind myself, doing my best and I care and I hope you're healing and I hope we're all healing because it really is the collective need right now. And I'm so, so deeply grateful for Rocky Mountain being of service to that. Like everything that they offer, every option that you could choose to come and participate with that community is in service of that in some way, which is profound to me anyway. So I just invite you to explore that, whatever that means for you in all the directions. You want to check out my book. This is what my book looks like, so you can see. It's Healing with Nature. You can get it on all the fun regular channels that books are available. And I also wanted to name, literally today, I announced the launch of my new website. So you all, the first community I'm teaching and talking to that is alive in. It's drrochellecalvert.com now. So you can find out everything you could want to know about me and then some, including my sprinter van. If you really want to know, there's a whole picture and a page about her and what she's up to and what she's about. But what's so beautiful, I offered an email to my email listserv today that this has been a long curation of me stepping into the foreground of the embodiment of it just being me. I've always been placing myself kind of in the background of a company called New Mindful Life that did lots of different things and helped lots of different people, and lots of different people practicing with me and supporting the teaching. But this is like me, this version of this nature me. And I'm so like sweetly delighted to be announcing it. So please check it out, because we really, the people who helped me, yeah, I feel like they just captured me in the website, and I I'm just delighted by it. So there's a lot of cool content in there to just check out and peruse. And then as Jessie mentioned at the beginning, I'm going to be teaching a Healing with Nature course for Rocky Mountain online. So very easy to get, as we did tonight, into this modality. And just to know what my teaching style is, it's much like what you experienced here tonight, but I'm very keen on community building, and as is Rocky Mountain. And so in the structure of the way that I lay out the courses and or my retreats, there's a lot of time in the evenings, usually on retreats, and then towards the end of everything we're doing in all of the courses, of the community interactive collective teaching process. So I really lean into the community's wisdom too, because there's so much that's alive and here to be learned together. So just know we got a little taste of that when we paused our recording to connect, but just know that's part of those offerings in that framework. Yeah, and I would love to see you at any of these offerings. Really excited to be back at Rocky Mountain teaching in late May, early June, and would love to see you all. We just discounted prices there, so just know that. So if you had looked, they are actually lower, just in service of making it. It's like, let's get anything out of the way that would be in the way. It's really bare bones to come at this point, but please come. If you can't come to the prices that are listed, again, Rocky Mountain offers scholarships. People can come. If that's the barrier, it's not a barrier. So just come. We will figure it out. So I think that's all I have to share for this evening. If there's any last comments or shares anyone would like to offer, you're welcome to do so now. And hopefully Jesse will come back on to say goodbye this evening. There he is. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Dorby, for the kind words. Yeah, and it's sweet to see. I actually know a fair amount of you, so that really warms my heart. And those that I don't know, I hope I get to know, like in person or in our course setting in some way. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, happy travels, happy nature beingness, wherever that takes you. And thanks for the opportunity, Jesse, to be
Mm.
here.
Thank you, Rochelle. Thank you, everybody, for coming. It's a beautiful offering.
Yeah. All right, everyone, have a great evening. Be well.